It was a starry summer night when a group of eager friends arrived at their campsite, deep in the heart of a dense forest. The camp was situated in a small clearing surrounded by tall old trees, with a calm stream just a few meters away. It was the perfect setting for a weekend of disconnecting from the city and the hustle and bustle of everyday life. The group of friends consisted of 4 people. Alex, the group's fearless leader; Sarah, his girlfriend, a nature enthusiast; Jake, the group's prankster; and Emily, a calm friend, but with a keen instinct for adventure. Each of them had longed for this forest escape, where they could enjoy nights around the campfire, tell scary stories, and take in the splendor of nature. When they arrived at the location, the excitement was palpable. They began setting up their tents as the sun set. The babbling brook provided the perfect soundtrack to the scene. They lit the fire, and the warmth and comfortable light chased away the night shadows that were beginning to envelop the camp. With the fire crackling, they roasted marshmallows, told jokes, and shared childhood stories. The feeling of camaraderie was in the air, and everyone felt grateful to be together on this perfect night. However, as the night progressed, something began to change. The moon was high in the sky, and the stars twinkled brightly. The night breeze whispered through the trees, creating an atmosphere of tranquility. But as the night wore on, a subtle sense of unease began to creep in among the group. Jake, the prankster of the group, began to report a strange feeling that they were being watched. "It must just be our imagination," Sarah tried to calm him. "The forest is full of mysterious sounds and movements at night." However, Alex also couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He took a flashlight and illuminated the surroundings, but he saw nothing out of the ordinary. "They're probably wild animals," he suggested. "Nothing to worry about." Emily, the most sensitive of the group, couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. As she watched the forest, a feeling that the eyes of nature were watching her came over her. She did not share her thoughts with others, but the restlessness did not leave her. The night advanced and the night cold set in. The group gathered around the campfire, but what was once a welcoming feeling of warmth began to become a chill of discomfort. The forest seemed darker and quieter than ever. That's when Jake started noticing personal items, like his phone and a flashlight, disappearing and reappearing in different places. He blamed his friends, thinking they were joking with him, but they all denied any involvement. The group's laughter was replaced by silence and uncertainty. A distant laugh echoed through the forest, and all eyes turned toward the sound. "That's a bad joke," Alex muttered, trying to look brave, but his face betrayed his uneasiness. The laughter echoed again, but now it was closer, as if someone or something was approaching them in the darkness. It was at that moment that Sarah noticed that her tent was being shaken by an invisible force. She screamed, alerting the others, and everyone rushed out of their tents in panic. That's when the peaceful night turned into a dark nightmare, and the group of friends realized that something unimaginable was happening. The darkness of the forest seemed to take on a life of its own, and they were at the center of something that defied logic and reason. The group of friends, now gathered around the campfire, felt a chill of fear spreading through the forest. The darkness was oppressive, and the night sounds became more sinister, as if nature itself were conspiring against them. The uneasiness that had begun as a sigh had turned into a silent cry of warning. Objects continued to disappear and reappear in different places, as if the forest itself was playing with them. The group tried to remain calm and explain things logically, but evidence of the supernatural surrounded them. Creaks of branches, sighs, and distant laughter echoed through the forest, creating a terrifying atmosphere. It was Sarah who first noticed that the nighttime cold was becoming more intense, despite it being midsummer. The lanterns and torches began to flicker, as if an invisible force was draining their energy. Jessica, the most sensitive of the group, had the impression that something or someone was watching them. She looked at the surrounding trees, but nothing was visible. However, his intuition told him that they were not alone in that dark forest. Unrest grew as objects continued to disappear and reappear, and distant laughter turned to unintelligible whispers. Jake, the prankster of the group, tried to forget his fear with one of his usual tricks, but this time there was no audience to laugh at his antics. The group remained together, exchanging nervous glances and whispering words of comfort. Yet the feeling that something was wrong persisted, and the forest seemed to have a will of its own, a sinister will that defied understanding. It was then that panic truly set in. Sarah's tent began to shake violently, as if an invisible force was trying to tear it down. She screamed for help, and her friends rushed to her aid. However, the scene before them left them paralyzed with terror. A shadowy, indistinct figure appeared at the edge of the clearing. His eyes glowed like embers in the dark, and his body looked like a mirage, merging with the shadows of the forest. The group of friends were petrified, unable to understand what was happening. The figure slowly advanced towards them, as if gliding over the ground. His face was hidden in shadows, but his eyes seemed to pierce the soul of the group. No one dared to move or speak, captive to the paralyzing fear that dominated them. The shadowy figure continued to advance towards the group of friends, its eyes glowing like flames in the dark. Panic had taken over everyone, but the fight for survival drove them to act. Alex, the leader of the group, acted quickly, grabbing a piece of red-hot wood from the fire and brandishing it towards the figure. "Stay back!" he shouted, trying to protect his friends. The shadowy figure seemed to recoil from the light and heat of the makeshift torch. Meanwhile, Emily, the calm friend, began reciting words she had read in an old book about protection from the supernatural. She hoped the words had some effect on the dark entity. However, Emily's words didn't seem to have any immediate effect. The shadowy figure continued to move, as if it was only temporarily repelled by the light and words. Jake, terrified, grabbed another torch and lit it on the fire, joining Alex in trying to keep the figure at bay. Sarah, despite her fear, searched her backpack and found a protective amulet that she had brought with her. She held the amulet tightly and began to murmur words of protection. To everyone's surprise, the shadowy figure seemed to hesitate before the amulet, as if afraid of its power. Jessica, who had sensed from the beginning that something was wrong in the forest, had a glimpse of the truth. She realized that the shadowy figure was linked to an ancient sacrificial ritual that had taken place in that forest many years ago. They were facing something that was beyond their understanding. "This entity is linked to a past event," Jessica said urgently. "We need to find a way to break this bond and undo it." Jessica's words were interrupted when the shadowy figure began uttering words in an ancient, unintelligible language. The forest seemed to respond to the figure's call, with the trees twisting and the shadows coming to life. The fire, which had been a source of warmth and security, began to dwindle, as if the energy itself was being drained. The dark creatures of the forest began to gather around the group, as if they were ready to join the shadowy figure. The group of friends realized they were facing something far beyond their capabilities. They had tampered with forces they didn't understand, and now they were trapped in a supernatural nightmare. With the fire nearly extinguished and the shadowy figure about to advance again, they find themselves faced with an impossible choice. Fight against the unknown or flee into the darkness of the forest where the danger was unknown. The decision they made would forever change the course of that terrifying night and define their fate in that haunted forest. Faced with the choice between facing the unknown or fleeing into the darkness of the forest, the group of friends realized there was no safe option. They were trapped in a supernatural situation that defied comprehension. With the shadowy figure advancing and the shadowy creatures of the forest all around them, Alex made a risky decision. He shouted for the group to run toward the nearby creek, hoping to find shelter in the water. Amidst the chaos, with torches in hand, the group of friends ran towards the stream. The shadowy figure followed them, but the glow of the torches seemed to keep it at a distance. As they crossed the stream and reached the other side, the shadowy figure seemed to hesitate, as if the water were a protective barrier. Sarah, holding her protective amulet, believed the amulet's power was helping to keep them safe. She prayed in silence, begging for protection from the evil forces that surrounded them. Across the stream, the group of friends gathered in a small open space in the forest. They knew they needed to find a way to face the supernatural that had been chasing them all night. Jessica, with her knowledge of ancient rituals, tried to remember details of the sacrificial ritual that had taken place in that forest. She realized that the shadowy figure was directly linked to this event, but the exact nature of the link remained unclear. Emily suggested that if the shadowy figure was linked to the ritual, they should try to undo that link. To do this, they would have to find the place where the ritual had taken place. It was a risky idea, but the group had no other option. Guided by Jessica, who'd seen glimpses of ancient memories of the forest, they began to venture deeper into the forest. The shadowy figure remained on the other side of the stream, unable to cross it. As they approached the ritual site, the sounds of the forest became more ominous, as if nature itself was protesting their presence. The trees twisted, the shadows came to life, and the wind whispered dark words. Finally, they arrived at the ritual site, a clearing surrounded by ancient trees. A mysterious stone sat in the center of the clearing, engraved with arcane symbols. It was then that Jessica had a revelation. She approached the stone and began to decipher the symbols engraved on it. As she did so, a feeling of vertigo overcame her, and she saw a vision of the past. At the height of her vision, she saw the shadowy figure kneeling before the stone, tears streaming down her face. The other specters watched her with blank, indifferent gazes. Jessica understood the dark truth that tied everything together. The shadowy figure was a victim of the macabre ritual, trapped in an endless, tormented existence. She was bound to the stone and condemned to wander between the past and the present, searching for liberation. "I know how to break the call," Jessica exclaimed. "We need to help the shadowy figure find peace." As she made the statement, the stone began to glow, emitting a soft light. The shadowy figure across the stream seemed to calm down, and his eyes regained a fleeting gleam of recognition. The group of friends knew that the journey was not over yet. They would face greater challenges to fulfill their mission of helping the shadowy figure find the redemption he so richly deserved. As the rain continued to fall, they got up and returned to the road, taking with them the determination to face the unknown and face the dark revelations that were yet to come. The chase in the woods had turned into a search for the truth, and the group of friends were willing to face the supernatural to find answers.